Welcome. My name is Elizabeth Hodge, and I'm going to be providing you an overview for the edTPA. To begin with, the first thing that you're going to be doing is start with reviewing the edTPA handbook. Next, you'll be working with your clinical teacher a great deal to determine the lesson segment in which you plan to teach for your edTPA. Let's talk about it a little bit more in terms of what's the purpose of the edTPA. So the edTPA is a performance-based assessment that determines whether novice teachers are ready to be in the field. It focuses on 4 key areas. 1, to develop your knowledge of subject matter, content standards, and pedagogy. 2, to develop and apply knowledge of varied students' needs. 3rd, to consider research and theory about how students learn. And 4th, to reflect and analyze on evidence and the effects it's had on student learning. So what does this mean for students? For students, there'll be 3 tasks that you'll need to complete for the edTPA. The first task, planning, instruction, and assessment. Number 2, instructing and engaging students in learning. And 3rd, assessing student learning. These will all be completed over a specific period of time throughout the semester. And again, based on our next slide here, you'll want to work with your clinical teacher. So for planning for instruction for semester your senior 1, you'll need to get with your clinical teacher and determine when you can record your instruction prior to November 7th. This will mean that you'll need to determine a lesson segment that you'll be teaching prior to November 7th so that you can capture the video and complete tasks 1 and task 2. Task 3 isn't due until later. So in terms of what to do next. So after you have met with your clinical teacher and determined your lesson segment, you want to complete and work on your context for learning. This is the background information about the school system and area that you'll be teaching in. From there, you determine your lesson segment that you'll be teaching, and this will be based on your blueprints, your CTE standards, and of course the area that your clinical teacher feels that you're strong enough in to teach a lesson segment. From the lesson segment, you'll want to determine and develop a central focus. The central focus can be thought of similar to in terms of the standard that's set within the blueprints, but it's also that you want to develop a central focus for your lesson segment that you'll be teaching. Now, this goal, it should be goal-oriented, and you'll want it to span not only your lesson segment, but it may even span beyond just your lesson segment of what you're instructing. You can see here on the screen I've got an example, but let's take a look at an example that's specific to our particular area. So in terms of the central focus, it really guides the lesson segments and unifies the learning targets and activities. So we'll talk about how those interconnect. But again, make sure that it's goal-oriented, that it's conceptual and not specific to just one assignment or activity that you're completing. So when we talk about that, you can see the arrow pointing to the language functions of analyze, design, argue, evaluate, so forth. You want to take your standard, and as an example, I've got one directly beneath it where standard for Microsoft Office, Word, and PowerPoint 1.0 is understand word processing software application skills using Microsoft Word. We can translate this into students apply reasoning skills to design a research paper as our central focus. Taking that a step further, we want to not only look at our central focus, but also our learning targets. So to match those or unify those two together, I've got the following list of 5 learning targets. After listening to lecture, students understand basic editing and formatting Microsoft Office tools. Students will research various formatting tools used to develop research papers. Students will compare and contrast Word document artifacts and create a list of formatting tools. Students will create Word documents to include tables and lists. And then finally, students will format and design a basic research paper. Now you can see that I've got some text highlighted in blue. And for these, again, we're talking about those language demands and linking our targets back to our central focus. So students apply, understand, research, compare and contrast, create, design. All of these components will be included in the activities that you, or assignments that you include within your lesson segment. Hopefully that helps a little bit in terms of understanding the central focus, but we'll have more tutorials that will also help you further. Good luck.